We're going to move inside Jupiter again, continuing our presentation of the Dramatis Persona. You're going to see two men who work side by side. Cyril Ponroy, you just saw him in the film, the mission director from Arianespace. And at his side, the DDO, Raymond Boyas from the CNES. It's his voice you hear calling out the milestones in the countdown and during the flight. And he's going to call out the 4-minute mark.
Top I0 moins 4 minutes.
4 minutes marks the final moments of the final countdown. 4 minutes to go until liftoff of Arianespace's 7th flight of the year and the 7th Vega mission. The green status panels, we have a chance we can describe them. They're on the right of the screen. The space base covers a lot of ground, 750 square kilometers, and a lot goes on here. And all of those activities can be summed up by the status panels. They are a go, no-go, green, red resume of everything it takes to prepare, launch, and follow Vega, or Ariane and Soyuz as well. Green means okay, red means the opposite. It's very simple. We get a red in any of these areas, any of those bars, we stop the countdown. We check these panels during the first part of the mission before lifting off. They have to be green to give a go, and you can see that is the case with 3 minutes to go. Some 1,700 people work around the space base. It's a busy place. We don't have cameras everywhere, but one place we do have a camera is up here. This is the Vega Launch Management Center. And the team's there led by André Sicard, the launch operations manager. You just saw him, and you saw him in the video before. The Vega Launch Control Center is in the same building as the Ariane 5 Control Center. Overall mission control is provided from here in the Jupiter building for all flights. The Launch Control Center is about 14 kilometers away from us here in Jupiter, and the men and women you see are only 3 kilometers to the pad. They're much closer, but they are protected inside a blockhouse with walls 1 meter thick. Right now, these teams are monitoring all the operations leading right down to liftoff. Once Vega leaves the pad, their job is done. There are hundreds and hundreds of parameters for them to check. Basically, what's happening is power is passing from the ground, which controls everything now, to the onboard computers, which will control everything after liftoff. Arianespace, with its family of 3 launch vehicles, Ariane 5, Soyuz, and Vega, the only launch services provider able to handle all missions, all orbits, and all sizes of satellites. At a moment like this, with 1.5 minutes to go, you think of all the people who have worked hard to put the mission together in the space industries, at ESA, at CNES, our partner organizations, everyone who has contributed. It's a team effort, and the space business always has been. The DDO is going to call out the 1 minute mark in just a moment, but before that, we want to say hello to everybody taking the broadcast. To our
À tous les DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
DDO will call out the 1 minute mark. To our friends in Terra Bella in Mountain View, California, on hand for the launch.
Top I0 moins 1 minute.
Tuning in from Charlie's Cafe in Google headquarters. Good evening to you. At PeruSat in Pucusana, at the Centro Nacional de Operaciones de Imágenes Satelitales del Perú. Hope I said that right. And greetings also to the ESA centers worldwide, the Arianespace offices, CNES offices, all our industrial partners, and everybody watching on the internet. We're just half a minute away from liftoff. We're going to cut away, let you listen to the DDO as he calls out the final 10 seconds, and we will be back once Vega has cleared the tower. The mission about to begin. Enjoy the liftoff, everybody.
Attention pour le décompte final.
Final countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage P80, décollage. Propulsion nominale. Pilotage calme, trajectoire nominale.
As the DDO says everything is normal on board, you saw Vega rise like an arrow surprisingly fast if you're used to
Acquisition
watching
par la station de Saint-Jean.
Ariane
Paramètres à
5
bord
lift
normaux.
off. DDO continues to say all is working perfectly. Those of you familiar with the Ariane flights know that the heavier launcher rises much more slowly, weighs 6 times what Vega does, carries 4 times as much propellant. Vega lifting off perfectly.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
French Guiana beginning her 7th mission, weighing at liftoff 138 tons. The first stage is burning now. It weighs 97 tons. 88 tons of that
Trajectoire nominale.
are fuel. Most of any launcher's weight is propellant. The first stage burns its single engine for about 2 minutes before being jettisoned. The first stage is produced in Colleferro near Rome, then delivered to the French Guiana plant here where it's loaded with fuel, then transferred to the booster integration building. You saw some of that in the video on the launcher campaign earlier. And what are the satellites doing right now, you are asking? Well, that's a good question. They are sitting quietly on top of the launcher, enjoying the ride, getting ready to go to work. They were disconnected from external power about 30 minutes before liftoff and are now running on their own batteries. There, looks like extinction
Premier étage
of
P80.
the lower stage. Lower stage is also called P.
Allumage deuxième étage Z23.
And we've had confirmation of separation of the first stage and ignition of the second stage. All is going right according to plan. We're in the second stage burn. The second stage, called the Z23, Z for Zefiro, burns its solid rocket motor for 86 seconds. Again, if you're keeping score on the mass and fuel numbers,
Propulsion nominale.
its weight 25 tons, its fuel 23 tons. Vega is launching north tonight towards a polar orbit. In this orbit, satellites are often used for global mapping and Earth observation. It's a sun-synchronous, heliosynchronous orbit. The satellite passes over the same part of the Earth at roughly the same time each day, but on a different plane, eventually covering the entire
Tous les
surface
paramètres à bord sont normaux.
of the planet. They call it a ball of yarn type of orbit, if you can imagine that picture. This orbit is used for satellites that, of course, need constant sunlight to take quality pictures of the planet. And most Earth observation satellites are on similar orbits,
Propulsion
much
nominale, trajectoire nominale.
lower than the geostationary orbit used by telecommunication satellites, the kind launched by Ariane. For those kind of orbits, we launch to the east across the Atlantic. Tonight, we're going north. On the bottom left of the screen, our altitude, coming up on 120 kilometers, leaving the atmosphere. On the right, our speed, approaching 4 kilometers per second. We're awaiting confirmation of the second stage.
Séparation du deuxième étage Z23.
And there it was, right on time. Second stage is separating and ignition of the third stage. Vega, V-E-G-A, means in Italian Vettore Europeo di Generazione Avanzata, or Advanced Generation European Vehicle. Fairing separation coming up next.
Allumage. Largage coiffe. Allumage du troisième étage
There we are. You
Z9.
see, the fairing is blown away by a very controlled explosion. You saw the two halves leaving exposed to the elements the 4
Visibilité
SkySats,
Galio.
which are the blue boxes just on the right of your screen. We can separate the fairing now because we're out of the atmosphere. The passengers now are getting their first taste of space. The fairing protects the passengers from the jolts and the pressures and the slings and the arrows of Earth's atmosphere. So we don't need it anymore. We can get rid of some weight. The upper passengers, SkySats, on the right of the composite. A word now from Alexander Delano of Arianespace on Vega's mission tonight.
During the first phases of flight, the solid booster stages P80, Zefiro 23 and Zefiro 9 will be tracked by the telemeasure ground station Galio over a duration of 7 minutes. Due to safety aspects, these 3 stages will re-enter in the seas. The last stage, integrating a liquid engine named Avum, will reach a transfer orbit after a first boost duration of 6 minutes. This boost will be tracked by Bermude and Canadian Saint-Hubert ground stations. In order to make the first SSO orbit circular, a shorter second boost of 2 minutes will occur under South Korean Jeju station visibility after a long intermediate ballistic phase of 24 minutes. Once the targeted orbit reach, the 4 SkySat Gen 2 will be released one by one. For the second part of the mission, the upper composite of the carrying structure named Vespa will be separated, and a third AVOM boost will occur under Australian Lunar Station during 47 seconds in order to start the target 700 km SSO altitude. After one Earth rotation, a fourth AVOM boost will be foreseen over a duration of 45 seconds and ground tracked by Bermuda. PeruSat 1 will be then released after 103 minutes of flight.
We are coming up on acquisition of Vega's signal by our first tracking stations on the ground. They are located here in French Guiana. The first is at Gallio, that's just behind Jupiter here. The second is at Saint-Jean-de-Maroni. It is a mobile station used for Vega missions as an extension of the Gallio facility.
Z9.
And the DDO's called out separation of the third stage. Waiting for ignition of the first upper stage burn. That's going to come in about 2 minutes. Saint-Jean-de-Maroni, as I was saying, a mobile station used for Vega, tonight installed about 200 kilometers west of here. Both Gallio and Saint-Jean will have seen the pre-launch sequence and liftoff up to the third stage separation. Italian participation in Vega runs to just under 60%, 58 to be exact. The Italians leading the program. The French are next with 25%. Belgium, Spain, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Sweden also contribute. We're coming up, as we say, in a minute on the first ignition of the fourth stage. The fourth stage is called the AVOM, AVUM, which means Attitude and Vernier Upper Module, of Vernier being a synonym for precision and referring to the precision required by the upper stage. This because the AVOM is designed to deliver different payloads into different orbits and to perform very, very fine satellite pointing before separating the satellites. That's what liquid propulsion can do. Solid propulsion basically used for power as the first ignition of the AVOM comes on. Liquid propulsion more for precision operations. There will be 4 burns of the AVOM engine. This first lasts around 6 minutes. This will take Vega to a transfer orbit. At about 38 minutes after liftoff, the AVOM will ignite a second time for about a minute to circularize the orbit, and a third burn takes place during the break when we'll be leaving you for 50 minutes, and a fourth burn occurs just before PeruSat separation. More of the mission in a moment. First, a film on Vega and her past successes. Take a look.